Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GB region presentation. I'd like to welcome tonight's speaker, Christopher Quebral. Christopher is a highly accomplished professional with a unique blend of expertise in both civil engineering and law. He is a chartered engineer with Engineers Ireland and is a qualified solicitor in the UK. Christopher also serves as the Vice Chair of the GB region. I'd like to thank Christopher ahead of the presentation, and I'll now hand you over to Christopher.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this presentation, and I hope that you will find the information that I'm about to explain useful to your daily career. Okay, and Philip, thank you for the very good introduction. So let me start on it. So we as engineers would normally try and protect ourselves against professional negligence. And that seems to be the main focus when we're doing our job, when we're doing our design work, or when we're doing anything to do with the business. Now, one of the things that we commonly miss is what we call the accidental partnership. Okay, hence the title of our presentation for tonight, which is called Accidental Partnership. It's the consequences and avoidance of it. Okay, so we go on to the next slide. So our agenda for tonight is I'll do a bit of an introduction. I'll give you a short scope of the topic, the relevance of it to our career and our daily business. I'll also give you some simple examples that are very easy to understand. I'll also introduce you to the governing law here in the UK and also in Ireland, which is the Partnership Act of 1890. And I will then go to explain how the formation of partnership comes into being and the liabilities that come with it. And I will also discuss how to avoid forming an unwanted partnership. And then we go to the conclusion, which will then, the entire duration would probably last approximately 30 minutes or less. Okay, moving on. So the purpose of this presentation is to help individuals avoid the risk of liabilities resulting from accidental partnership. So that's the purpose of it. A lot of us doesn't know on many occasions that we are actually entering into a partnership that will entail liability. Unfortunately, we don't know it until somebody comes along and looks and sues us for damages. So then the scope of it, the partnership law is quite long. However, for the purpose of this presentation, I will only discuss the accidental partnership and how to avoid it. So it will just be a short discussion. The other parts of partnership law will probably be discussed sometime next year when we finish our scheduling. Now, the importance of it is, of course, when you know the rules, you will be able to avoid it. And when you're able to avoid it, the lesser liability. So that's the importance of this presentation. So as I've mentioned earlier, most individuals verbally enter into an agreement with another individual with a view of sharing profit. That happened. I will discuss this further when I give you the example. Now, if everything goes well, yeah, of course, it will be happy days. You get your money, and no problems at all. However, if something goes wrong, then the question is to be asked: who bears the liability? Whereas in the first place, you didn't even know that you went into such kind of a partnership, and now you're being held to be liable. Now, remember, I placed on the one of the bullet points the statute of limitations. So when somebody enters into an unknown partnership, like you don't know that you entered into this partnership, you have six, whoever's trying to hold you liable has 6 years to to sue you for it from the date that the breach happened or the incident happened. Okay. Now, so I'm gonna move on to the example. Let me give you an example, which is an engineer and a builder, which is quite common in our profession as engineers. Now, this particular scenario, the builder approaches an engineer, and then the builder will then tell you or us as an engineer, I will build to your drawings, and I will split the profit with you, 75% for me, 25% for you. The engineer then agrees. He draws up the plan for the builder. They don't have any written agreement at all. Now the results, assuming that the results are it's a faulty construction by the builder, the owner then claims for damages, and then the builder disappears. In this kind of a scenario, the effect is the engineer may become liable for the defects, but you didn't actually know that you actually entered into this liability beforehand. This kind, like entering into an accidental partnership, also happens in other scenarios, not just in the lives of us engineers. It could happen in any business entity. So let me give you an example, like a restaurant business, for example. So in this particular example, there were five individuals who verbally agreed to open a restaurant. Now, one of the individuals loaned a large sum of money from the bank. He told the bank that I got four partners with me, and we are putting up this restaurant. And along the way, they fell out before the restaurant even opened. The result of that is, because there's no partnership agreement, all of the five become equally liable to pay the loan, even if the single individual within the group um, signed the loan papers, and everything was actually in his name. So the effect of the partnership is to make them all five liable. This is even if the restaurant didn't open yet. Now, this is similar to the case of what we call Can v. Mia. It's a 2000 case. It's more or less similar. I just changed a bit of the scenario to make it a bit simpler. Now, moving on, the governing law is the Partnership Act of 1890. Now, the Partnership Act of 1890 is it's a UK law, but it has been also adopted by Irish law. Hence, you could also find it at the Irish Statute Book.ie, which is the provisions of it are the same. Now, the main thing that we need to look at for the purpose of this presentation is the definition of partnership. Based on the Act, partnership is defined as a relationship which exists when two or more persons carry on business together to make profit. So, going back to the examples that I've given you, both the engineer and the builder were to carry out a business in common, which is the construction side of things, with a view of making profit. Like, such as the builder will take 75%, the engineer will take 25% of the profit. Now, in saying that, that example is very simple. It could be more complicated, and more investigations and analysis will need to be done. But in simpler terms, it is when two or more people agree to agree and embark on a common business with a view of sharing profit or making profit. Okay, so I now move on. Sorry. I now move on to answer the question: how is partnership then formed? So how do you put yourself in a situation wherein you're actually in a partnership? Hence the accidental partnership that we are trying to discuss. Now, in general, when the definition of partnership as per Section 1 is met. Section 1 is Section 1 of the Partnership Act of 1890, which gave you the definition of what is a partnership. So in general, when you meet when the parties meet the definition given by the Partnership Act, then partnership is formed. There are other ways wherein partnership is formed. It is by way of an association, by accident, or even by carelessness. Now, by entering into this kind of a partnership is implied by conduct. Meaning, say, for example, again, let's say an engineer and a builder visits a client together. And then during the course of the conversation, the client, you then tell the builder that, the client, that you both work together. And on many occasions, the engineer then visits sites. He makes decisions as if he's project managing, such as, say, he saw a laborer doing something like maybe mixing cement or putting in mortar, and then he gives instruction to this laborer to do something else, and perhaps giving instructions to chippies or the carpenters, in a way that he is being seen as if he was actually doing project management already, but in fact his role was just to design, to do the structural design, for example. And then this is when as I've said, when the engineer gives instructions to site personnel, and he is always seen with the builder discussing what to do, as if they're really partners. They have no written agreement, and in many circumstances, payments are just received by the builder, and then the builder then pays the engineer. In that kind of a scenario, partnership is formed by way of the conduct that was done by the two parties. So then when this happens, you then become liable as a part of the partnership. So what are the liabilities? The potential liabilities of partners are, so partnership is somehow based in the law of agency. Now, the law of agency says that an agent can bind the principal. So meaning between the partners, any partner can bind the partnership or the other person into a contract. And in so doing, you would, of course, when you enter into a contract, you are then subject to damages under contract law if in case there's a breach. And another example is partners are liable to the firm's debts. Now, when I say firm means it's a collective term for partners, for a group of people who are partners. So that partnership is called a firm. So a firm, a partner, each partner is liable for the firm's debts. So imagine this: if one of the partners applied for a loan, he took the loan and didn't pay for it, assuming that the elements of partnership are in place, it would mean that everybody within that partnership is actually liable. So if in case you went into an accidental partnership and this one of the parties subsequently took out a loan or entered into a contract, you as the other partner who accidentally joined the partnership becomes liable for it. Okay, so there are also unauthorized actions that appear to an outsider or a client to be legitimate. So unauthorized actions, these are the action of one of the, say, I'm going to go back to the example of an engineer and a builder. So in a situation wherein the builder says I'm going to purchase more steel, for example, and put them in different places such as this. But then this wasn't actually authorized by the by the engineer. However, because the builder is being seen as a part of the team, it will then be, even if he is unauthorized to do so, the partner will be bound, such as the engineer will be bound for the unauthorized actions, such as maybe if in case the steels weren't paid for, then the engineer will become liable for paying the ordered steel, even if he didn't authorize the ordering of it. Or you could also switch it the other way around, wherein the engineer ordered the steel, but the builder didn't authorize it, then the builder could become liable for ordering the steel and paying for the steels. Okay, so this happens when the action that was done by the unauthorized person is related to the business, such as construction and ordering steel. So they're related, and the person is expected to have the authority. So even if he didn't have the authority, the third party or the client might be expecting him to have the authority to do so. And another thing is when the other party did not know that the person has no authority. So even if he didn't know that, he didn't have any authority, if he looked like a person with or expected to have the authority, then his actions become binding in partnership. And another thing, when the other party thought that the person was a partner. So in the situation of the examples that I've given you, if the party involved or the client, for example, thinks that he is a partner, both are partners, then they become liable for the actions. Okay. There's another situation wherein a person becomes personally liable even if he is not actually a partner he was never a partner of the firm. And this happens when, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say a creditor thought that an engineer was a partner, and then the engineer then made verbal representations that was relied upon by a creditor to release funds or loan to a builder. So what happens in that scenario is, because the rule says that you become personally liable even if you weren't actually a partner, if you held out yourself to be that you look like a partner to of the firm, and that you made representations that uh, that anybody relied upon, such as a creditor, and then the creditor then um, relied on your representations to give out a loan. So then you become personally liable for it. In extreme circumstances, you could also be subjected to tortious liability. Now, partnership law is mostly relevant to contract law. It's actually a contract between parties. Now, in many occasions, when there's no you cannot claim damages via contract, you may be able to claim damages via the law of torts. So hence, there's a possibility that when you enter into a partnership, that you will also be liable under tort. Okay. Now, the purpose of all of this presentation is to help you avoid going into such kind of scenario. Now, hence we will try and answer the question how to avoid unwanted partnership. So the very first thing is, of course, avoid carrying out business in common. And so what happens is try to keep away from the definition of partnership. So avoid entering into a situation wherein somebody would think that you are a partner of, like in the example that I've given you, that you're a partner of the builder, so that you make it clear that you are not a partner and that you are running your own firm, and that you are actually controlling anything to do, let's say, for this with your structural design. and that the builder is just to follow your design. So if you make it clear that you're not carrying out the business in common and you're not sharing any profit, then you are keeping away from your unwanted partnership and liabilities. Now, there are situations wherein like in design and build situations with no written agreements normally fall in a situation in a partnership situation with lots of liabilities. Now, in a business, normally you will have let's say for example softwares. So we as engineers, we make use of softwares to design our like me, I'm a structural engineer, so I use softwares to design beams and whatnot. Now, when there was a situation wherein an architect wanted to go into to share a job, whereas I design it, we share the profit, and then we also share on the expenses of the software. Now, in doing so, I'm actually entering into a partnership because I'm no longer controlling my software. Somebody's paying for paying the share to maintain it, and in extreme circumstances, the architect might also want to have a look on how it works, and at some point in time, he would want to do simple designs out of the software. Now, the control of any property belonging to you must remain with you in order for you to keep away from entering into a purported partnership, such as what I've said, an architect trying to enter into a business venture wherein the structural design work and the architectural design work are placed into one drawing, and then the client might look into it as if it was a joint exercise between the architect and the engineer. So, control of your properties as a business is a main element. Now, another thing is, we as engineers, we make decisions on our design work, but the temptation is there wherein we go to site, for example, and we make other decisions which are not actually related to our field. And in doing so, we might be entering into the remit of a partnership simply because of the actions that we are doing. So advice is that maybe make decisions only within your profession and the scope of your services, rather than going further in order for you to keep away. Now, another thing, be careful of your actions. That's one of the main things. On the previous slides, I've discussed holding out, such as holding out telling people that you're supporting this builder, that you work together, that he's very good, even if it's in a joking manner. If it was taken as true by believed as true by the third party who's listening or who is also involved in the job, then your actions may be taken as if you're actually a partner. So be careful of your actions. Now, the one last thing is, when you're entering into something, it will always be good to put a business agreement in writing. So when you put it in writing, you would include what the scope of your services, what are you charging for, and the limitations, etc. There's this thing called a partnership agreement, if in case you wanted to go into a partnership. Now, the partnership agreement has headings on it that will give you the ingredients that you need in order for you to properly enter into a partnership that will also include the limitation of your liabilities. All right, so that's that. Now, as I've said, this is a very short presentation, and it's only to say that if you don't like going into this risk of getting liabilities, then I would recommend that try to avoid it. Okay. So in conclusion, engineers and all other individuals can easily fall within the ambit of a partnership for want of income. I think we know that everybody knows this because everybody needs money. And sometimes somebody comes to you and, hey, look, let's do this. We make money out of it, not knowing that there might be consequences to it. Now, unwanted partnership can be avoided by being careful in the way we act or talk, such as what I've discussed earlier on. So in general, be careful in the way we conduct ourselves as individuals or professionals. So if you think that you've entered into a partnership by accident, then get out of the partnership as quick as you can, especially so when it would be good to get out if you knew that you already went into a partnership and then the definition of partnership is you're going under the definition of a partnership and you don't actually want it, then the advice is get out of it already. You could do this by making it clear to the people concerned that there's no partnership and that your liability is only limited to, say, design work and so on. Now, there's this thing called the statute of limitations. The disadvantage of an engineer, for example, entering into a partnership with a builder. The builder has a limited company and has a limited liability. A partnership does not have any limited liability. Any injured party can go after your personal belongings or personal monies, if you like, and there's no limit to it. And in a situation, there could even be a situation wherein, say, the builder disappears. When the builder disappears and you're the only person that the injured party can access, he or she could actually sue you for the damages, and it would be you who will be responsible to look for that builder. The problem is most builders, given in this kind of a situation, will declare bankruptcy or dissolve their company, which makes it again more difficult for you to recoup damages. So the moral lesson of the story is be careful not to enter into an accidental partnership. So that would end my short presentation, and thank you for listening. I can now take any questions. Now, I've placed my contact details on the board. If you have any questions or anything to do, like legal question that has something to do with our profession, please feel free to send me an email, and I will try to answer it as much as I could. And if I cannot answer it, I will point you to the right direction. Okay, so I can now take questions.
Thank you very much, Christopher. Just a quick reminder to everybody online, if you do need to ask a question or would like to ask a question, to enter it into the Q&A function on Zoom. I've only got 2 questions here at the moment from that. So I'm going to ask one question from there, and then I'm going to maybe open it up to the floor, Christopher, if anybody in the room has a question for you then after that.
Okay.
So I think you've actually essentially answered this in your conclusions, but if you've just realized that you may be in an accidental partnership, how would you get out of it, assuming that there have been no claims made already?
Yeah. Well, the way around it, the easiest way around it is to put it in writing, make a formal letter, and inform the parties involved, such as the client in my previous example, that you are not a partner. Make it clear that you are not a partner and that your liabilities are only limited to the design of the structure, for example, and all of those, and that you are not liable for any building activities and all that. Now, in saying that, I've mentioned about the statute of limitations. See, the trouble is when you've accidentally entered into a partnership, and the build was already completed, and you didn't know that you entered into a partnership, and then 4 years later something happened to the property. It turned out that it was a faulty construction. Unfortunately, in that kind of situation, you become liable for it because you haven't even if you told the client that you are not a partner, the difficulty is determining when you cease to become a partner, because liability doesn't cease until you get out of the partnership. So sorry, I think I said it wrong. So you will still be liable for anything that happened within that partnership, and anything that happened after you left is when you're not liable for. But there will be some difficulty of determining when did the partnership end. But best effort would be to write to the clients and make them clear as early as you can that you are not a partner of the in the situation.
Thank you
As
very
yeah.
I don't know, is there anybody in the room who wants to raise a question?
Do you have any questions? They don't.
Okay, I'll go on to the next question here, and it's from Martin, and it is, how can you differentiate between entering into a partnership and undertaking the role of principal designer by making decisions outside your remit?
Okay. Now, there are rules to determine partnership, which is covered by whether partnership exists. This is covered by the Partnership Act of 1890. I think it's like Section 2. Now, in that kind of a situation, it will not be a partnership, because the a principal designer has its own contract with the client. So it is clear that he is not a partner, and he is paid directly by the client. So one of the things that determines whether there's a partnership, if whether one of the parties is sharing a profit with the rest. If he's sharing profit with the rest, chances are it's already one of those ingredients that will entail a partnership. Now, of course, each situation will give a different result, but in a situation of a principal designer, structural engineer, electrical engineer, and the builder, each of them have their own contracts. So the trouble is, if you don't have a contract and then you share profit, then you're into a partnership. Now, bearing in mind as well, the actions that you do, such as let's say when you are holding out and you're trying to become say a guarantor, you're trying to guarantee something. Say mostly this happens with the builder. When you're trying to guarantee something with the builder, and the way you're expressing yourself somehow shows that you have interest in the business. You have an interest in the business, which as a result will make you a partner. Then that will be a different story. So the main thing to note is always have your own contract, even if you're the principal designer.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
I've got one more question online, so I'll ask that now, but if somebody in the room has something to ask after that, we'll do so. But the final question I have for you is, it's regarding the perception of the client that you mentioned earlier. So could something as simple as wearing a contractor's high or PPE equipment or turning up to site together in the same vehicle kind of make a client think that you could be in a partnership with that builder?
Well, my line of thinking in that scenario would be, if you've only done it once, then of course the answer would be no. That will be circumstantial. But if you're doing it all the time, like every time you go in there, you wear that hat, you wear the same, you're in the same vehicle, you walk around site, and you basically make decisions on site between the two of you. It will most likely show that the client it will most likely make the client think that you are into a partnership. There's a small caveat on it. See, even the client, unless advised by a solicitor or any legal expert, she wouldn't even know who to she might think that she could the only person that she will be going after if there's something wrong with the build is the builder. However, if they if somebody if she, for example, or the client, for example, approaches a solicitor, the solicitor could then say that, hey, look, you don't have to just run after your builder, because there seems to be a partnership here. You could actually run after your architect or your engineer. So that's the caveat. So it may not be. It is an assumption that the client will just go after the builder, but it's not. It will still be safer if we don't enter into this accidental partnership. As I've said, it could be that a solicitor might advise a client.
Thank you very much. I suppose one final call from the room, if anybody has any questions.
Do you have any questions? They don't have any questions.
That's the case. Thank you very much again, Christopher. Some excellent advice provided there. I'm sure we'll all be very careful on how we progress this going forward. So thanks again for the presentation and your time.
Thank you very much for having me again. And thank you for attending.